Okay, so now we have participants already joining in. So let's start with the webinar today. My name is Avantika Arjuna. I would thank everyone for taking out your precious time and being a part of today's discussion. The topic of the webinar today is understanding the role of private sector in promoting electric mobility in India. This webinar is being supported by National Renewable Energy Laboratory and SlowCat Partnership. As we all understand, in today's scenario, emissions from transport sector have become a major concern globally, as well as for India due to adverse impacts which it gives on, which are associated with emissions, and that do create a lot of impact on air pollution and also affect the health and cause a lot of related health issues. Therefore, in order to reduce the intensity of emissions from the transport sector, the governments across the globe and government of India has been encouraging the adoption of electric mobility to reduce the dependence on fossil fuels and also promoting electric mobility as a primary alternative to internal combustion engine vehicles. We've been seeing since many years now, a lot of policy frameworks at national levels have been included in our country, which is being adopted as a supportive policy environment by different state governments as well, which also include basically provision of incentives to private sector and appropriate environment for setting up EV startups and ease of manufacturing, etc. These basically are few of enabling frameworks which are helping in expansion of EV ecosystems in India. I would just would like to go back to the to explain the scenario to you that this is a series of webinar which is being conducted as a part of Asia Let's Partnership. This was started in May this year, initially when we had started this topic of learning more about private sector involvement in promoting electric mobility in India. Initially, the first webinar focused on learning from how aggregators are working in, but this webinar is focusing on learning from OEMs, what major challenges and what barriers these OEMs face while working on electric mobility in India. We all understand that government does plays, it all happens with definite support of the government. So it is very interesting to know from the government point of view all the actions which are being done by government as well. So this webinar focuses on learning from listening from the government as well as from the private sector. As we move further, we have experts from, could you please move to the next slide, please? We have experts from Niti Aayog who would be letting us know about the actions which are being taken by Niti Aayog at the national level, the policy level frameworks which are being done at national level, how these are being helpful in further promoting electric mobility. Then we would learn from experts from the private sector, which we have experts from Omega Seki group of companies. The director, Mr. Dev Mukherjee, will share his experiences, which would be then followed by an expert from Electra Green Tech Limited, Mr. Venugopal Rao. He will share his experiences. Now, before moving further, I would like to give a brief introduction about ALP. ALP, as most of us already know, that it is a global voluntary platform which has been working in providing technical assistance on various issues, which also include transport, which include energy, which include finance as well, and subnational integration. So this is a kind of actions which are being undertaken under ALP, wherein technical assistance is provided to different countries. As of now, there are around 1,288 members of ALP, which also include around 427 organizations and individuals, out of which 65 government agencies are also a part of this voluntary framework, ALP framework. And basically, the services which are offered under ALP are it aims at providing knowledge products, climate help desk services, capacity building, and also networking events. As I already mentioned about community of practices which are being a part of ALP, which include transport, finance, energy, subnational integration. As a part of community of practices of transport, we've been earlier involved in engaging with different countries, which included Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and also Thailand, wherein assistance related to transport has been provided, which aimed at increasing the ridership of public transport, followed by that was a part of technical assistance provided in Thailand. Besides technical assistance electric mobility, developing a framework for electric mobility in Sri Lanka was provided. Now, without wasting more, as we are short of time, I would request the first speaker from Niti Ayog. Could we please move on to the next slides, please? Next slides, please. We would like to invite Mr. Rajesh Gupta from Niti Ayog. He is the director of Niti Ayog. Sir, we would request you to share your views on the topic and the actions which Niti Ayog is taking. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Avantika, and very good morning to all the uh, esteemed participants of this very valuable webinar today, as well as the organizers. Coming to the spectrum of policies from the government, and having realized that decarbonization pathways uh, majorly have to go around energy, buildings, and transport. That's how there is a general consensus that a net zero 2070 target is achievable. Then comes the role of transport here. Why transport? Because this is ubiquitous. This is in all our lives. Probably energy generation plants are not in everybody's domain. Probably large energy consuming buildings are not where everybody can play a role, but transport is one of the sectors where for decarbonization most of us play an active role, whether as suppliers, as consumers, or the creators of infrastructure and other facilities. So in this context, mm, government of India and many other state governments also now have come up with very proactive approach, in the sense that there are supply side policies in place. For example, the PLI scheme. There are demand incentive schemes in place, for example, the FAME. And of late, a great emphasis has been laid on the creation of infrastructure, for example, the charging point infrastructure, which is solving the chicken and egg kind of dilemma in this particular sector. Having said that, it is also worth noting that transport sector decarbonization is a very complex issue to deal with. There is an industry which is at stake. There are consumers whose convenience, preference, and in general, a growth, because this particular industry has a very robust backward and forward linkages in the entire economy. So the complexity, because if you are talking about electric vehicles, it's not just a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler, it's a complete chain at the back end. You have to have infrastructure in place, which requires land acquisition. You have to have electricity coming from somewhere, and that electricity again has desirably should be a green electricity. So the complexity is enormous, and because of this complexity, it requires a multi stakeholder, multi expert kind of an intervention. Because on one hand we have technology which is evolving, continuously evolving. On another hand, there is a regulation, and in between somewhere lies uh, the the bunch of stakeholders, the industry, the manufacturers, the consumers. So there are various models getting evolved. India is at a very sweet spot. We have already crossed 5% EV penetration. We are hoping that soon we will be crossing the 10% mark in EV penetration. But again, in EV, in the vehicle segment, there are so many types. I mean, you have at the very low end an e-rickshaw, and then a 55 tonner truck. So in this entire spectrum, various levels of technology, various levels of infrastructure, various levels of uh, expertise, regulations, etc., are required, for which this kind of webinar becomes very important, where we are able to synthesize what exactly is the best direction to prioritize the scarce resources, because no scheme can have endless funds. There has to be a prioritization. Now what it seems is that, having seen a good momentum in the two wheeler three wheeler segment, probably the greater emphasis will now be on the fleet electrification, that is trucks, which requires a host of interventions. It's not just about creation of few charging points. Probably what Niti is looking for is uh, scalable, bankable projects where we have, at least few of the expressways in coming 5 years becoming completely green highways, green expressways. Also, the public transport. India still remains a transport starved country. We have to have many more buses and public transport in all the cities in particular, and of course, catering to the rural areas and phases. So, this means that there is again a variety of choices before the decision makers. For example, if there is an state transport unit which is needing say 500 buses in next 1 year, how many of these buses can be electric? This depends upon so many things. How much is the, first of all, how much is the supply available? Second, how much is that, that TCO calculation is favoring? How much is the infrastructure for charging available? How much is a per day kilometerage which is possible for that particular state transport unit? So, and what will be the mix of ICE and EV vehicles to be procured by these state transport units in next one? This all becomes a very complex multivariable equation which cannot be solved by simple calculus. It requires so much effort from all the sides, and that's why I must appreciate the efforts taken by Asia Leds and ICLEI people who are taking so much effort in organizing this event, inviting all the uh, stakeholders, collecting information, disseminating the insights to all of us. So I am very hopeful that this webinar today will bring more of the insights from experts to the table, so that we can further improve our policy discourse on transport sector decarbonization. I wish all the best to the organizers and to the esteemed participants. I wish a very fruitful day ahead for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We take your guidance and we'll move accordingly further. Thank you so much for setting in the context and sharing the critical points about the supply side need of appropriate infrastructure and also the demand incentive schemes which you did talk about. And we are happy to know about the interest which you mentioned about the scalable, bankable projects, even the freight sector, and yes, public transport. That is really very important in the context of India. And yeah, with this, I thank you very much, sir, for joining. With this, we would move further. I would now request the next speaker, Mr. Dev Mukherjee, who is a senior advisor and director at Omega Seki Group of Companies. He's been working in the automotive industry in India for more than 35 years. He has handled various positions for basically on related to automotive industry, and he has written several papers and articles on Indian industry and economy in various publications. And he's been mentoring a lot of startups in India in electric mobility, last mile logistics, and battery manufacturing. He's also been an advisor to Government of India, Ministry of Industries and MSME for promotion of several government schemes. I would request Mr. Dev Mukherjee, uh, over to you, sir, to share your experiences.
Thank you very much, Avantika. And I thank the organizers, Asia Lads, for giving this opportunity. It's a great platform to be in, and sharing my thoughts on the electrification of automobile industry and also fleet decarbonization, which is probably the most significant change we are seeing in more than 100 years of this industry being in existence. So I like to, as you had requested, I like to share a presentation on what we are doing and what are our thoughts on how the decarbonization of supply chains should be taken up by various stakeholders. So if you allow me, I'd like to present a short presentation and talk about it.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, you will move the slides, or should I take over and I can present my presentation?
Sir, as you say, but we can move the slides for you as well.
All right, then let's start.
Sure.
Yeah, as we know, government incentive. What are the major drivers to this decarbonization? So obviously, number one is the government incentives and drive towards private sector participation. Then funding on the demand incentivization by various schemes like FAME2. On the supply side, we have PLI. So these are all, we are aware of the government support, I think, which is very consistent. And also we have, apart from the central government, at state level, there are various subsidies, particularly on the demand incentivization side. So we'll talk about a little bit more on this. And technology maturity is also a major driver. Today, in the non-fossil fuel, battery is the only, or electric is the only mature technology. Going forward, probably we'll have other variants of battery technology like sodium, metal, air, etc. And also hydrogen will come. So as these technologies mature, they drive the alternate fuel mobility. And last but not the least, we have a commitment. Government has made a commitment to become carbon neutral by 2070. And before that, by 2050, 50% energy generation by renewables, etc. So these are all very objectified, goals. Next, please. I think this slide is not clear. I think.
Yeah. I think we can give rights to you, sir, if you would want to
Yeah,
share.
yeah. I will. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I will. Yeah, this is the slide which we all know. The targets for our electrification. Government has set. Niti also has been talking about it, and this is a documented target: 30% electrification by 2030. So as we know, we have a very large population of two-wheelers, three-wheeler, passenger cars, and then commercial vehicles. So two-wheeler, according to our assessment, the way electrification is going, we see more than 50% two-wheeler will be electrified. In three-wheelers, we have a very large electrification, particularly in the passenger side. It's one of the big success stories. And I do see that it's probably going to be around 70%. And remaining will be 30 odd percent. So overall, what I'm trying to show is a very large population of the vehicles will get electrified. So automobile switch to electric is the next disruption. We talked about 30% conversion by 2030. This is ambitious, but looking at the geopolitical risks hitting oil and commodity production, pricing, etc., we see that two and three wheelers will be the first adopters of these technology. Now, what does it mean? It means our 30% conversion will mean that India will need around 200 gigawatt hour of battery capacity. This includes the new vehicles as well as replacement batteries requirements, which will keep coming up. Now, this is, a quarter of present global capacity. Setting up such large battery supply chain will need a lot of planning, tie-ups with crucial suppliers for lithium, graphite, aluminum, magnesium, and other critical items, most of which are not available today in India. So that's where we see that these supply chain tie-ups are going to be very, very crucial, and also the technology tie-ups, because these supply chain need a lot of time to mature. It takes decades to mature the supply chains. Now, here is what we'd like to see from our perspective, how we see IC vehicle vis-a-vis the electric vehicle. In IC, the energy industry was kind of isolated from the automobile industry, means automakers were not really responsible or, stakeholders in the fuel industry. Mobility, the focus was, making the vehicle faster, cheaper, safer, etc. And emission norms were getting tightened every year. So we had challenges and targets to meet the emissions. And obviously, the cost economics were very, very important for a price-sensitive market like automobile. Coming to EV, now here is a major shift. First time the OEMs are also responsible for the fuel, which is the battery in the car. So we are responsible for battery manufacturing, battery, selection of technology, chemistry, also during the lifetime, the charging, and end of life treatment, the recycling. So it's a major shift. So OEMs becoming part of this whole energy ecosystem. Now, on the mobility, we are seeing various new models, mobility as a service, then various modes like financing, leasing, platform, aggregation, etc. So this is a new trend that we are seeing. And on the connectivity, this is a new technology upgradation where, EVs by design are connected. So we are seeing more upgradation of this connectivity, wherein all the vehicles are connected to the cloud, and very high level of digitization is happening where we get access to all the data of the vehicle. Then data is taken to the cloud for processing, and then using various data analytics, artificial intelligence, etc. You get the feedback and feedback to the system. And obviously the economics become important, because using technology, we'll have to reduce the cost to make the vehicle, make the EVs affordable. Now, coming to Omega Seki, as to what we have done so far, we started working on this idea of a non-fossil fuel vehicle somewhere around 2015. And 2020, we launched our first vehicle, which is a three-wheeler. We are primarily a three-wheeler manufacturer and last mile service provider. 2021, we started our last mile mobility operations under Uno Express, that is our brand. And today we are one of the largest for e-commerce companies like Amazon, etc. We run almost 5,000 vehicles pan-India. 2022, we launched a high-speed scooter, Shark. And then this year, passenger vehicle Stream was launched. We are working on a pickup truck. It is going to be a 1 ton payload, 1 and 1.5 ton payload pickup truck, which is where I see that the next disruption will happen in electric vehicle. That is a very large segment of the entire logistics system. Then 3 to 4 years down the line, we'll look at the LCVs, about 3.5 ton payload vehicle. The R&D is going on in our tech centers in Thailand and Korea. As you can see, we are a pretty global company. We have our offices in Dubai, which handles our MENA region. businesses. Then we have an office in Germany and one in Switzerland for our Europe business. Our manufacturing facilities are in India, and Bangladesh. We have set up a JV. So overall, going forward, we see that we will have multiple alliances with various global partners. We already have 3 joint ventures with Korean companies for manufacturing our own powertrain, a new high-end scooter, and also a Japanese alliance is in the works. And for batteries, we have tied up with a leading technology partner from the US. So this is how our sort of overall landscape has been planned, the technology tie-ups, alliances, which is where I think the success of private sector will lie. This is a game of alliances, and because everybody is practically starting from ground zero, and we have to learn from each other. We have to take each other's help. Now, coming to issues and challenges, I think we have all been talking about it at various forums, along with government bodies, policymakers, etc. So I just tried to summarize. According to me, the issues and challenges could be categorized in 4 sort of categories. One is the technology. Technology is evolving rapidly, as we all know. And this is where OEMs need to keep track. And again, as I said, we have to align ourselves with partners, and maybe academia has to play a role. Researchers have to come forward. So it's a game where all the stakeholders have to come together to keep track of technologies, and then the OEMs will have to invest in whatever technology they feel is going to suit them best. Economics, we know that today no EVs are viable without the government subsidies. So I think which is a big challenge, and industry needs to work towards it, because today we have a sizable volume, particularly in 2 and 3 wheelers, where I think we have reached the inflection point. So we have to work on making the EVs viable without any government incentive going forward. So next, I see that by 2030, next 5 to 7 years, I think is going to be very crucial, where all the supply chain issues, challenges, investments will have to be sorted out, and all these serious OEMs will have to do this heavy lifting. So this is where investments would be required, and for long-term ROIs. Obviously, lack of capital, and particularly for the MSMEs, or in automotive industry, MSMEs play a very large role. Almost 70 to 80% of the industry is MSME. So this is where I think the government needs to come up with maybe some PLI scheme for MSMEs, or some other capital allocation needs to be done, because for them the lack of capital and access to capital and the terms at which they borrow, etc., is very unfavorable. Now, on the social side, EV ready human resource is a challenge, and this is again the job of I think the institutions, where the curriculum needs to be recalibrated to take care of these emerging technologies, particularly at the level of diploma colleges, polytechnics, ITIs, etc., which is where most of these pipeline of human resources are built. And industry on its part needs to train a very large size human resource across the value chain. I can tell you from my personal experience, we have a big challenge finding mechanics, electricians to handle the EV, because it is a entirely different technology, and high voltage systems and handling the battery, energy system, etc., is something which is new. Political side, of course, the government policies need to be consistent, and at the state level particularly, and also some of the areas where land allocation, change of land use, etc., becomes state subject. So that is where consistent policy across the country needs to be developed. But as I see the challenges, I also see these opportunities, and I have just tried to plot. According to me, on the hardware side, We have the energy pack, whereas the battery, BMS, motor, controller, etc. comes in. Most of these are the supply chains are getting set now. Earlier, they were all, as we know, China import, etc. And this is where the opportunity is for the industry to set up these large scale manufacturing supply chains in India. And I see that first time this is a huge opportunity for the manufacturers, for not only in India but for at a global level, which is something which did not happen so successfully in the IC era. Even today, if you see, we just export close to about $30 billion of auto components, which is very small compared to the overall global industry size. So Indian manufacturers can take care of these emerging opportunities, motors, controller, particularly electronics and software side. Then charging ecosystem, we all know that it is getting built, but still there is a huge opportunity to set up these charging stations at various levels. And these are the opportunities. Digitization, again, as I talked earlier, we are going to see this as a revenue stream for the vehicle makers as well as their extended arms. So a huge amount of data gets captured by the vehicle. That data gets processed and then it's getting fed back to the whole ecosystem. Now, coming to the logistics, because this was a point which was given to me to talk about. As per a recent report by CII, India's logistics and supply chain costs currently amount to a staggering US $400 billion, which is close to about 14% of the GDP. This is very high compared to the global average of 8%, raising a competitiveness gap of approximately US $180 billion. The problems are many. As we know, it is a very disorganized and fragmented industry. Just 10 to 15% of the overall market is owned by organized players. Online vertical is estimated to be US 20 to 30 billion by 2025. Out of that 30 billion, if you see the pie chart on the right, e-commerce, the first mile, then there is a processing, sorting, line haul, and last mile. The last mile itself is 50% of this 30 billion US dollar, which is massive. So this is where a lot of electric vehicles are getting deployed, and this is one of the major drivers of electrification today in the 2 and 3-wheeler form factor. But I do see as highways improve, the mobility improves, connectivity gets improved, intercity logistics, etc., will happen quickly. And the pickup truck that I mentioned will play here. And we will have more and more, electrification opportunities in this segment. So e-commerce is going to remain a big driver of this because their business entirely depends on how quickly you serve your customer, the turnaround times, etc. Now, coming to Omega Seki, what we are doing, where we play in this whole ecosystem. It is a matrix that we plotted on technology, fuel mix, vehicle, end use, markets, and timelines. So on this, we have our vehicles, our products, either small vehicle, SCV trucks, and LCV trucks. As I said, we are a major player of 2 and 3-wheelers today, and our end use are last mile and delivery. We are also working on a cluster approach. I will talk about it in the next slide. And our markets are domestic and ASEAN. ASEAN is an important market for us. We have our alliance partners there. And next 3 to 4 years, we are looking at the next product, which is going to be the small commercial vehicle, 1 ton, 1.5 ton, and further would be higher tonnage of 3 to 7 in the LCV segment. And this is where we will play. So this is our focus area as per our business plan for next 5 years. We will play in the technology of battery, as well as we are working with an alliance partner and also IIT Roper on hydrogen fuel cells. So as the technology matures, we would be happy to take a look. Now, coming to the supply chain, I feel that the industry also needs to look at decarbonizing its own entire supply chain and not just the end product. What I mean is that logistics, for any industry is an essential part. It is like a raw material for a manufacturing unit. And auto OEM, I'm just showing one test case of auto OEMs. All auto OEMs source large amount of material from their suppliers, and they are categorized as sub-suppliers, raw material suppliers, etc. So it's a very large ecosystem that feeds the auto OEM. Now, just an example, Maruti Suzuki's inwards around 3,000 truck entries every day in each plant. 3,000 trucks enter Maruti Suzuki every day, carrying various kinds of materials. Same way, Hero, Honda, all Tata, various OEMs have their own large supply chain. And this itself is a very large carbon footprint, because many these trucks come from all across India. There are suppliers based out of Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore, Mysore, Madurai, etc., feeding Gurgaon or Pune, and from Pune to Gurgaon, Manesar, etc. So what I'm saying is, all across the auto industry, there is a huge crisscross movement of trucks happening every day. So we believe we have collated some data, and it shows that at least one third of these trucks could be shifted to electric three-wheelers for JIT supplies. And this is important because most of these OEMs like Maruti, they have their captive suppliers. For example, for Gurgaon and Manesar, there is a very large supplier base in Gurgaon, Manesar, etc., where almost 200 suppliers are based, and they are tier 2, etc. So these supplies can be shifted to the three-wheelers, or going forward, the Tata Ace kind of electric three-wheelers, electric vehicles. So we feel that this will decarbonize the entire supply chain. It's a holistic approach which every OEM needs to take as part of its target, and they can then earn their own carbon credits, etc., as we go forward on these regulatory mechanism. So just to substantiate this, JSW has done it in one of their plants, and they are mapping their per kg steel carbon footprint of per kg of steel. So this is a good way, for every industry like food industry, steel industry, auto industry, etc., to sort of clean up their entire supply chain. So even before the car is getting built, the supply chain itself is clogged with various carbon emissions. Now, my vision for EVs, to summarize, electric vehicle would be a part of a very large energy ecosystem. EVs will play a major role in India's shift towards clean energy. Today India is transiting towards clean energy, and I believe that on the mobility, EVs will play a massive role. EVs would be a problem solver for the mobility, energy, transportation, economics, technology, and the social aspects which we talked about. So EVs need to become a flag bearer of technology wave for India. We need to spearhead this high value add manufacturing in the country, and not just back end servicing. So this is the paradigm shift which is happening in EV industry, in the automotive industry, from IC to EVs. We talked about the OEMs becoming responsible for fuel. Fundamental shifts are software-driven vehicle as a service, value creation through technologies, IPs, and non-automobile makers also have a chance, because this is a technology for all. Everybody is starting from kind of ground zero. So as Omega Seki, we are trying to play our a small role in this whole shift, and we believe that many more such companies, such initiatives are required for all the stakeholders in this large ecosystem. So these are my thoughts, and I will be happy to take questions or interact with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Thank you for sharing all the efforts which are being done at Omega Seki. We really appreciate that. And thank you for sharing all your points. You especially mentioned about the last mile connectivity, the opportunities which you see, how could electric vehicles can come more into it, and also about the non-fossil fuel mobility matrix which you talked about, and as the technologies improving and your collaborations with the institutions and all. It's really great to know. And also, I guess the cluster approach of carbonization, which you mentioned. I guess all the actions which are being done at Omega Seiki, they're really very useful. And we'll have more questions as we move further. We can take, I guess, we take the questions after we have the last speaker speaking. Uh, with this, I would now request Mr. Venugopal Rao, who's been working with Electra Green Tech Limited as the Vice President Sales and Marketing. Mr. Venugopal has been working since more than 33 years in the automotive industries. And during his recent association with big corporates in cement, mining, and infrastructure industries, he's been conducting trials to educate and showcase the products which he's been working on. He's been majorly currently working on deploying e-buses and e-trucks in corporates and industries for multiple logistics and services. I would request Mr. Venugopal to please go ahead with his presentations. Sir, we understand you also have few videos to show. We have them with us. Do let us know when you want us to play. You are muted, sir. If you could please unmute yourself.
Good morning, everybody. Can I share my presentation directly from here?
Yes, we can move
That's
the
okay?
slide. Do you want to share yourself? Yeah, you can please go ahead sharing.
Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible. If you could make it to slide show mode. Yeah, please go
Is that
ahead, sir.
good?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Devji. So,
Good morning. Good
Oleg,
morning. Good morning, Venu. Very nice seeing you. Please looking
yeah,
forward to learning from you. Please go ahead.
okay. Yeah. So, Olectra is the first Indian electric bus company started in 2015, which mostly everybody is aware that the first set of bus trials and bus education for the STUs has been done by the Olectra only. And we started our journey in 2015, and Olectra is part of Mega Engineering Group, which is about 35,000 crore group. And our product, that is electric bus of 9 meter and 12 meter, we have showcased about 45 STUs by showcasing this with the full-fledged trials. That is how India moved ahead with the electric buses. And then the second stage in 2023, we started our first electric tipper in India. And that also we similarly, we are doing reaching out to most of these corporates, particularly into mining and cement industry, to showcase the product and trials given, and shared their own operational efficiency by electric tipper, and by explaining and proving the TCO benefits to them. And Olectra started with a small manufacturing unit in Hyderabad. Then we added second plant recently in 2022. Now in 2023 end or 2024 beginning, we'll be having our third largest India's electric bus manufacturing plant near in Hyderabad. So we, as an overall product matrix, we have electric tippers currently and electric buses of different range and different product line. Initially, I will run through for 4 5 slides about the corporate presentation. Then I'll come back to the subject of our discussion on the private sector. This is our journey so far. So we started our buses in 2015, and we moved today to averaging of about 1,500 buses deployed, 1447 buses, and about 51 tippers have been deployed in India. And we currently hold about 8,200 orders in hand. And this is how we changed the whole scenario in India, with having about 4 models of buses with 135 plus variants approved in the Indian requirement based on the Indian requirement. These are the key markets where we are currently representing, primarily into West market and South market, very little into the North India. And these are the multiple locations where our products are being used with their the concerned branding of the respective STUs and plus these municipalities and smart cities. And the recent success has been in one of the Tirupati project, where we have even deployed under the CSR activity 10 buses in Lord Balaji's temple area, where the free bus service is being built. And these are our models which are currently in operational. We have 7-meter, 9-meter, 7-meter in type 1 and type 2. And these are the type 2 buses. And our electric tipper journey started in Jan-Feb of 2023. And slowly we built the product. We have done trials in our own projects. And on proving our project, we have started doing this particular project with respect to the most of this happening cement plants, mining, and other sectors. And primarily this one area where private sector can be utilized, like Jeffji mentioned, some of the markets currently use very huge number of tipper trailers in cement plants, internal transportation. And this is the right product. This kind of products can make a big difference to their operational cost. And moreover, the ROE is 3.5 years, where they, even if it is a 3x plus capital investment, but still it can be recovered in 3.5 years by saving the diesel. This is our product technical specs. This is a 360-degree view of our product, and one or two clips which we can quickly run through. This is a silent beast. You will not hear anything but except moving the product. So we'll come to our major task of discussing on the points. So Electra as a company started the journey for proving. First step of our journey has been proving the technology, proving the new technology to our STUs and making them to buy. So ultimately, post we have done the trials, it has been like investment issues have come, and the GCC model actually initiated by us first from the our own home state, Telangana, and it started with operating the buses between Trichy to airport, under which we have done the multiple. You have seen the journey, and most of our buses are under the GCC model, and we have started our private and STUs business about 6 months back, and we have very good demand generation has happened. The subject of getting this movement of STUs with the support of the funding from our own companies and deploying these under the our own platform, which is called eVetrans, has become very easy, and this is the most easiest way to do them. But when it comes to the private operators, the challenge is accepting of this 3x plus investment is the biggest task. And most of the people, senior leadership or management, quite impressed and more interested into shifting to the green mobility. But when it comes to the investment, that is where they were, they are very much concerned. And there is no kind of support from any, because the opportunity for the electric buses particularly is available for employee transportation and school buses. and this is primarily in private sector. And for getting this to move, the biggest challenge is getting the funding of the product, and which is become like a task that cannot be achieved by individually. It requires a lot of support from the NBFCs, lot of support from the government of India and finance department for making this easy support, easy funding of buses for the corporates. Like in if you like Devji mentioned, like suppose if you look at e-commerce, today e-commerce vehicles are being funded because there is a back-to-back contract by the e-commerce companies. Similarly, there is a very good contracts which are ready to be signed by the corporates, but however, getting kind of a funding for operating under the GCC model has become big task because the capex is very high and funding is very low. And what kind of networking we are looking at is currently we are fully involved and deploying our buses and business into the domestic market. But if any country is interested in deploying or any partner is interested, we are open to discuss with a local partner on case-to-case basis. And particularly where the right-hand side development products are useful, we are open for the discussion. Reason being that these products are currently used in India, proven the technology, proven the product, so this becomes easy for the countries to use. Whereas if it is LHD model, we are still in the starting stage. We are not exploring any of that immediately. And biggest opportunity for transport sector converter is about 20%. And they use the e-buses. This helps for reducing the carbon emission, and also it helps in adding the value for their own portfolio, because the government of India also is coming up with the green credits. So ultimately that becomes advantage for these companies. And particularly any other EV product, short and middle mile logistics will be very helpful. Similarly for tippers also, because cement in the mining industry uses these products from the construction group, also from the different short distances. They use the vehicles, multiple vehicles, which are going between the cities and between the villages, which are polluting too much. So if they converted into the electric mobility, it surely helps. And this also one of the reasons that we have been educating these industries, how it benefits them with respect to the TCO and also with respect to their green mobility. So as on date, as per the bus hour calculation, we have clocked about 12.5 crore clean kilometers with 4.2 crores liters of diesel hours. And we created 420 plus crore of fuel cost saved and 52 plus lakhs of trees required to achieve this CO2 reduction. So 1,13,300 tons of CO2 emission reduced with the 1,450 buses that we are operating currently. And thank you very much, and thanks for giving this opportunity to further discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venugopal. Thank you for sharing such
Any
good
video
insights.
that you would like to request
Yeah,
to show the video?
sure. We have.
That
We'll
brings
just.
more. Yeah, please.
Anandan, can we get the videos played?
Yes, Avantika. In what order?
I think we can start with this.
The EV market in India is taking giant strides with government incentives and increasing awareness about environmental issues. Research studies show that the electric bus segment compared to other e-vehicles has witnessed a significantly higher EV penetration in India. And this can be attributed to the makers of e-buses like our Olectra Green Tech and users like several state road transport corporations. Olectra stands first in the e-bus league with a current manufacturing capacity of 4,000 e-buses per annum, which is soon expected to touch 10,000 once our new manufacturing unit in Sitarampur, Telangana is ready. We are one of India's top e-bus manufacturers with a vast production capacity covering the customizing criteria. Our USP has always been seating capacity, comfort, bus size, AC, USB chargers, and CC cameras. Upon customizing, our e-buses can accommodate 45 passengers on the higher side. On the other hand, another noteworthy feature is that, depending on the client's requirement, the e-buses can be customized with the kneeling mechanism, easing travel for the differently abled. Many cities are making the green switch by adopting our e-buses, and their ability to cover longer ranges on a single charge is noteworthy. Our e-buses are available in 4 different models with 135 variants, each with a different speed limit equipped with a customized speed lock system. Our e-buses have an advanced battery system which can be charged in about 2 hours. In addition to outstanding performance, our fully air-conditioned e-buses have inbuilt CC cameras for enhanced security. These e-buses have made their mark in India as a sustainable and emission-free alternative, especially in public transportation. Our electric buses are way more economical and reliable than fossil fuel buses, contributing towards securing our planet from being damaged furthermore. Our e-buses are among the first to actively run even in hilly terrains such as Dehradun, Himalayan mountains, and Tirumala Ghat roads. We have also broken the records of flying an e-bus on the Manali-Rohtang Pass Ghat route at 13,000 feet altitude and have featured in the Limca Book of Records. Today, standing tall as one of the largest manufacturers of e-buses in the country, we are proud to have our e-buses traverse every corner of the nation, paving the way to a greener and better future.
Thank you, Anandan, for playing the video. Yes, Mr. Venugopal, it was really very insightful. Yeah, really very insightful to listen from you, and even more overwhelming to look at the video. So it's great all the efforts which are being done. Now we have few set of questions coming in. I would like to start with Mr. Mukherjee. So the first question, and then maybe we can follow the same question with Mr. Venugopal. So the first question is, do you think OEMs do have a role to increase consumer awareness and educate the public about the benefits and features of electric vehicles? If yes, what role the OEMs could play in this? Or in case you're already doing, if you would like to share, throw some light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, first of all, EV is a new technology globally, and this is the first time we are seeing India right in the forefront of this transition. Typically, in the past we always had a lag. Some technology comes in US, Europe, etc. Then we follow after 10 years, 20 years, etc. But this is one transition which we are seeing that India is very much part of the global transition system. Of course, I'm not talking about the supply chain, etc., but on the demand side, on the adoption side. Now, this adoption, or adoption, whenever it happens, now all the stakeholders need to, align. It is not just that OEM start making, government makes a regulation that from tomorrow onwards everything becomes electric. Doesn't happen like that. So the user's mindset has to change. Today, every user thinks, I will run out of battery, I will run out of charge. So which is not the case when we drive a petrol car or a diesel car. So now, even though the charge is enough to take him to 100 or 150 kilometer, typically, the drive cycle or the usage cycle need to be mapped, that I have to drive only 50 kilometers. Okay. And many of the tier 2, tier 3 cities, rural, etc., 50 kilometer is enough. So that charge anxiety should not be in their mind that, okay, I'll run out of charge, I'll get stranded, or the battery or the vehicle is not safe, etc. So this is where the OEMs have to come forward and conduct these kind of interactions, and their front end, like dealer is the most the link which engages with the end user in the country. Anytime you go and buy a vehicle or anything, not only vehicle, any consumer good also, we always ask, finally we ask the salesman, yaar theek hai na? So he kind of says, हाँ sir, ले लीजिए, ठीक है, no problem. So this is where the dealer education is also required. The sales people right in the front who are engaging with the customer, they have to explain that, see, this is a robust technology. The vehicle is safe, the charging protocol, etc., have to be explained to them. Home charging, for example. Now home charging is okay, but we also have to see the safety aspect of it. Has the home wiring, etc., have been built accordingly? Is there could there be a safety issue? The BMS has been calibrated, etc. What I'm saying is, there is a part of technology and human interaction here, not a collision. Technology and humans should not collide. When they collide, then there is a problem. But when they align, then the problems get solved. So as the industry evolves, so more and more of these interactions will be required for educating the end user, educating the mechanics, the dealers, the after sale. I mean, there is a large supply chain, and this is where the whole pipeline of human resources also need to be built, which I talked about, at the colleges, institutions, polytechnics, etc. So yes, to summarize, I would say OEMs need to play a very large role here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Also pointing out that it is really important not only for the public but even the salesperson. Everyone involved in the chain do need to know that why this is required. And also, as a follow-up of this question, I would now like to move to Mr. Venugopal to know his views on this. Sir, if you could also focus on your ideas about collaborating with CSOs also in with regard to electric mobility, and then we can maybe listen what Mr. Dev Mukherjee has to add on related to CSOs.
See, if you have seen my communication in the presentation, the biggest challenge for India is to accept anything change. When we wanted to make this to happen, one of the area is that to prove them what is the change it gives them benefit and how it is advantage to them. So I think 2015-16, I entered into the electric mobility from my conventional ICE products. And from that day, I am been working on three areas. One is the promoting the product, two is the demand generation, and three is retailing. When it comes to the first two, I need to spend more time with my clients or users or future customers to educate them first. Education of the new technology will only help in making them to aware and making them to know the product. Similarly, in the Electra, when we started electric buses journey, when we have done the first trial, you will not believe, that is in Himachal Pradesh, and there was other two OEMs also available, and we have to prove everybody in the Himachal area that how electric bus can make the difference, whether it can go to that kind of terrain or not. And this education made them to accept, and the first Indian STU to buy 25 buses on outright purchase. This is how the success story started. Then subsequently, when we have done the same exercise in Telangana for the Telangana government, those days it is Andhra government, and making them to aware that how the airport operation can be eased out by operating the electric buses. So what is the trials? Even in today's condition, when we wanted to buy any automotive product, we tend to go to the showroom and see the trial, then accept whether to buy or not. Are we now today, because of the technology advancement, we go to multiple companies, multiple OEM dealers and check all the products. Similarly, in electric mobility, we need to do that. Not just by promoting the product and selling the product by giving some special offers or some advantages. That is one point. Second point is, if you see the education level at children need to be done for them to understand what is electric mobility, how it makes the difference in their family. Even if the some of the students 10th plus also, they even for the graduates also, they are not aware that what is the real advantage with electric mobility, which is commonly need to be addressed by the government, which can be supported by the OEM. And in the corporates also, I see when I meet the corporates in top management, they are basically don't know that how it benefits, and they will always be carrying some information. They read it that electric mobility will have this problem, that problem. Anyway, end of the day, electricity is generated from the coal. These all subjects have to be clearly addressed. This is where the knowledge comes. If the knowledge is not given, nothing will happen. I remember when the FAME one before, there is a meeting conducted by the government of India. I was there in that meeting. There is a big minutes of meeting is made of a 6 pages. And one of the key point was demand generation, education. And I have not seen any much happening over there, except the OEMs are doing whatever. Whatever today is happening, I can challenge, I can say this openly, that OEMs are putting efforts in training the people, training the customer, educating the customer, because end of the day, we as a businessman has to do business also. So, Devji, if you are having anything to say in this.
No, I completely agree. You see, the government can set policies, but there are, I mean, at the policy making level, but there are many government institutions, organizations which have to take this forward and see the implementation happen when we are talking about such a significant change. You see, I think even today, this enormity, the scale, and the speed of change of electric, non-fuel has not been understood totally. Somebody is saying we will become 30%, somebody says 70%, somebody even says 100%. There is a report which says that 100% electric by 2030. Are kaise hoga? How? Leave aside the supply challenges, etc. Even the human resources, the training, the education, all that is missing. And where this is where I do not see the initiatives by certain government entities or organizations which are supposed to be doing. There is a organization which is supposed to be responsible for training, skilling, etc. I don't see anything happening. Industry has to do, because as Venu said, it is our money, we have to do it, we have to make money, we are in the business of doing business with everything that we have, so we have to do it. But at the same time, this is electrification is has very large implications across society. It is going to be a game changer for India, for the entire societies. We can do a lot of empowerment of our youth, our lot of our rural India, etc. This is where actual gain comes. It is not that you saved certain barrels of fuel, etc. Oh, theek hai. But what I'm saying is, on a long term, we have to see, what path are we taking, and this is where the training, education, skill development, etc., has to be, ensured at all levels. Curriculum, for example, I go to colleges and they are still teaching IC engine. I said, yeah, I mean, these students are going to be unemployable after 5 years because there is no gearbox, there is no IC. But they said, no, we can't change it. Now, see, somebody has to take the initiative and see, okay, we will do it. Otherwise, there is going to be a big gap.
Very fancy communications that happen in electric mobility is everybody says wow wow, but nobody says that what.
Yes.
Because from the past 6-7 years, every webinar, every discussion, I keep saying the biggest challenge for the manufacturer to get a trained manpower or skilled manpower or manpower with understanding. Way back 60s, with the governments of those days, thought that the natural learning which comes from the family background, for example, a carpenter, for example, a plumber, those kind of scenarios, the ITI, Industrial Training Institutes, have developed in India for particularly developing the knowledge and skill set for the future. Now, I am surprised. Past 6 years, we are seriously discussing about electric mobility. There is no electric mobility related course in the industrial training institutions in India, neither in the polytechnics, because
The engineering students who comes from the engineering never wanted to work on the floor. He always wanted to be supervisory category. But the real person works is the guy who comes from the ITI background or polytechnic background. Now, till date, there is no specific course or certification or a particular course which can help existing engineers or existing technical team to learn about electric mobility. For example, in ITI, electrician is one of the course. Poor fellows, they come out from the class and they start working in the rural tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 kind of locations as a local electricians, because they don't get any government job. Today, government job getting is not so easy. But these kind of people, if they are educated with the electric mobility as a backup, could be of wiring harness knowing, could be of assembly knowing, could be of motor power, could be of battery, anything. If that is done, that will seriously help country to move forward with the required manpower, because there is no way that somebody can say that ICE engine will go off. It will not. Whatever will happen, it will happen. Additionally, electric mobility will come onto the system, and which will add values, which will add services. Because today's our current requirement, we are meeting not even 35-40% of the India's requirement with the mobility as a product. So there is a huge potential which is going to be available, for which we need the right people to have knowledge and skill so that they can be used in the manufacturing plants, operational areas, and the swapping areas or battery areas or anything.
Thank you, Mr. Venugopal and Mr. Mukherjee, for sharing your views. We do understand, yeah, knowledge is really very important if we want this sector to grow. As we move further, as the discussion is getting deeper, I would request we have participants joining us from Bangladesh, from Chinese Taipei as well. I would request if you have any questions, kindly put it into the chat or raise your hand. We will unmute you, and we have speakers here to answer for you. Now, moving on to the next question, the one which we have is, we understand that major barriers in this field is regarding resale value of vehicles, especially that could be heavy duty vehicles as well. How do you think industries can overcome it? If maybe we can start with Mr. Venugopal, then we come down to Mr. Mukherjee.
Yeah, see, resale value is primarily looked at when the product is further can have a second life. For example, if somebody is buying an automobile product, unless he is a passionate, unless it is a lifestyle product, they will not change the product for this some long time. Particularly when it is in use of commercial or use of the public transport or use of people for the self earning, they don't require to replace. But whenever that comes, so the diesel vehicle value will be based on the market potential, based on the brand, and based on the kind of a product that they are buying. When it comes to electric mobility as a product will have a second life always when the battery is replaced. So battery as a fuel, which is in the beginning only they are buying, the customer is buying a product with the fuel. They additionally what he pays about 7 rupee of per unit charge per power charges is additional cost which can be made available for him based on the savings that he makes. So today we cannot even say that the how much it will save or what kind of save it will be of electric mobility for resale value. It is very difficult for anybody to say this, because after 7-8 years of the warranty, the battery goes off. Battery investment itself is the 40% or 60%. So it has to be looked at what is the revenue that they make in using the product during the product services. And that becomes a zero value actually. Only the body, only the motor, only the controller will be useful. When it is completed of the 7 years or 8 years as per the OEM's warranty on the battery, then the regeneration of the product has to be done with the refurbishment, and adding to that, the new fuel to be added as a battery. I am sure down the line, 4-5 years, the battery rates will come down, further cell rate will come down. In that point of time, the investment will be very nominal, and it is easy for that. But fixing a resale value for electric mobility, in my view, is not justified. I might be right or wrong, I don't know. Devji will is a actually Devji is our guru. He knows everything. He does a lot of study. We are practically working in the field, but he does the watching all of us.
Okay, so we would request Mr. Mukherjee to respond on this.
Yeah, Venu, I agree with you. You see, my thoughts, and I have conveyed my views on it, on this whole resale thing at many forums. I think this whole debate about resale value and recoverable value, etc., is frivolous. It is a no, no point of discussion. This whole thing was brought in by the financiers and insurers of the vehicle into the whole discussion. See why there is no debate about resale value of a IC car or a IC motorcycle. Okay, the problem is that where it started, we have to go back about 7-8 years ago when this whole EV started coming to India, and all these vehicles were Chinese vehicles, so low quality vehicles. Okay, so there is an asset risk. So that risk, obviously, the financer or a insurer has to cover. We understand that. You see, so the problem is not with the EV vehicle that it doesn't have resale value, or a problem is with your vehicle. If your vehicle is of poor quality, obviously it will not have a resale value. So that is the basic problem that we have to resolve. Second is this is the asset side risk. Okay. Second is the business side risk. For example, three-wheeler is a commercial vehicle. Nobody buys three-wheeler for personal use. A bus is a commercial vehicle. So that how much he is able to earn, how much he is able to pay EMI out of that earning, etc., has to be looked into, and you see the numbers and evaluate his credit worthiness, etc., and you decide whether you will give him the loan or not give him the loan. Okay, whether he qualifies or not qualifies. So that part is very simple, which is equally applicable to both IC as well as the EV. So there is, whether you apply for a loan for your IC vehicle, again the same thing applies, and if your credit worthiness is not good, obviously you will have a problem. So I think the whole debate about this resale, it centralizes around the quality of the vehicle that you are putting on the road. If your vehicle quality is such that it will break down or become scrap after 1 year, like many of these Chinese imports do, then obviously I will not finance a vehicle like that. Okay, so this is the whole the issue is not about resale for EVs. It is for resale for any vehicle. Is a valid question. And secondly, like Venu said, the whole battery prices, etc., are on the decline. As capacity is increasing globally, the prices will become, technology is improving. So all these are going on a upward curve. And I do see next 3 years, EVs will not only become at the same price as IC, but also become cheaper than IC, because we will have more capacity. We will also have engineered products. You see, today, the motor example, powertrain, there is no supply chain in India. It is getting set. So whatever motor we got from somewhere, we just put it in our vehicle and we start running. So that is not the way vehicles are to be built. Engine, IC powertrain took years to design, develop, test, validate, homologate, etc., etc. Here, people, startups, and many of them I see every day. We see some startup coming with bike, somebody coming with scooters. Everybody is in a hurry to go to market, and the only way to do it is through China. So that is where the whole problem lies. You make a robust vehicle, you make a properly engineered vehicle, where the question of life of 3 years or 2 years or resale doesn't arise at all. You buy a vehicle, you forget for next 5 years or 7 years, whatever you want to use. Simple. So the whole question itself is lopsided, according to me.
Okay.
And the investment on the product, when it is recovered in 3 years by
Yes.
saving the fuel, what is the
Yes.
value of the
What is
resale?
what is what is the problem about? So that's what I'm saying. There is no
The
question of
funding, the funding is done by the ex-finance company, and
absolutely.
he is getting his money. The buyer
Yes.
who's using, he has received his money in 3 years, and you have second life of 3 years without any repayment required. Why you require a resale value for the
Absolutely.
product which is
Venu, today in the whole value chain, the only people make money are the financiers.
correct?
They make 20%. You and I make 2%. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Mukherjee.
Avantika.
Yeah. Now, moving on to the next question we have is, how OEMs can help to increase and diversify e-mobility industries, specifically which are critical to raw material supply.
Sorry, how OEMs can help to diversify?
Yeah, to increase and diversify e-mobility industries, critical, basically focusing on raw material supply.
Yeah, this is a as we have talked about, both me and Ven, that if scale has to come, then obviously we need a very robust supply chain on the industry. Now, supply chain is, we have the tier one, tier two, tier three, and the raw material suppliers. So today there are gaps at every level: tier one, tier two, raw material. So all that will eventually get set in the country as the industry evolves. You go back 40 years, there was no auto industry in India. We had only Ambassador, Fiat, etc. But when Maruti came, they did the same thing. Okay, so we are not waiting for a Maruti to come here and do it. It is the job of the new industries like Omega, like Venuji, and other entrepreneurs who have a long-term vision. So the vision has to be that I will make vehicle, but according to, I will also do what is required to make these vehicles, the entire ecosystem of suppliers, sub-suppliers, raw materials, etc. And this is how the competitiveness grows. When once you have a good, a very robust ecosystem, then industry becomes competitive on its own. Okay, the global demand also kicks in, along with the domestic demand. So like that, I think now as the volumes are reaching that already reached tipping point in two-wheeler, three-wheelers, and buses, now we will have to have this supply chain. And each company will develop its own strategy. Somebody will do it in-house, somebody will do it through JVs, mergers, participations, or through their suppliers. So each company will have its own strategy. Um, I see that most of the serious OEMs will do motor powertrain in-house, at least the powertrain assemblies in-house, and battery packs also will get in-house. But the back-end supply chain to these, the motors, the powertrains, the electronics, the batteries, BMS, there is a very large supply chain required. So that also will happen, through these linkages and tie-ups.
Sure.
One
Mr.
one
Venugopal?
point, yeah, one point I wanted to add here. In fact, my answer was in advance. Question came later. If you see in India, the most of the advanced things that happen in India developed in India only. We have hardly believed or depended on outside India for any development in the country when it comes to the products that is used at our houses. For example, Coimbatore is a well-known
Yeah.
place for the most of the electrical motors. The fans that we use, the mixes that we use, and the pump sets that we use are invented in Coimbatore. But as on date, no industry or nobody there are trying to build a electric motor for the electric vehicles. Maybe they are trying, so they are waiting for the time to come up so that they will start the getting into that. We have a knowledge. For example, ISRO developed a motor configuration, and they called for the serious OEMs and vendors who are interested to develop it on their own. I believe this is not platform, but there are few participated, won the bid, and they started doing. Still, we are waiting. After the development of the product, it's supposed to be capitalized and it's supposed to be made it available for the people. Still, it is not happening. It's been 4 years. So these things are available in India and which can support globally. Actually, globally, because our economics for making that kind of a small components is much cheaper than any other country. But we are waiting for the time. So time has to come for everybody. So unless we get some kind of a hit or some kind of a pressure like COVID, we don't move next level.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your thoughts. We have one last question. After that, we would like to play a short video by Mr. Venugopal. One last question coming up is, would you like to share some insights on what do you think about end of life battery and repurposing for second life? Who
Yes,
would?
you see the battery, the lithium ion battery has a long life, and as the battery, the first life is for automotive, but after 80% of charge holding retention capacity, when it comes to 80% or so, then it is not suitable for automotive use, but it still has that life, and that is where the second life is being talked about, that the batteries would be used for inverters, UPS, and all such stationary applications, which are again a very large market in India. The UPS the home UPS, office UPS, inverter market is close to $1 billion in India. So that's very large market, and it is very important to not just throw out the batteries and discard them, but use them for second life. So this is where a new, the use case will develop as the battery vehicle populations increase. But then the technology and the companies will also have to evolve, because somebody has to check the battery health, the condition, the BMS, etc., and then start using it for the stationary application. And then end of that second life also, the battery has to go for end of life treatment. And some regulations are already on the way where OEMs would be made responsible, which is called EPR, extended product regulations. So it is already there in the EU, and I believe there is only a matter of time that this will become a regulation in India as well. The OEMs themselves are going to be responsible. Now, obviously, how will you do it? How will you track? Where is the vehicle? How will you reclaim? Then bring back, then deposit it with the recycler. Recycling capacities need to be set up, etc. Personally, I believe that this whole battery economy will evolve on its own in a separate way, right from battery manufacturing to charging to second life to end of life. So this is a whole battery ecosystem that will evolve, and it will be a very, very large, in terms of scale and size, probably even larger than the EV industry, or equally large as EV industry itself. So I think large players are already there. There are some new projects being announced for recycling, etc. And technology of lithium ion battery recycling is still evolving globally. Only there are a handful of companies who have this, who claim that they can recover 100% of batteries. So we'll have to see how it pans out in terms of technology. Then the infrastructure will have to be set in place. And I think, just to conclude, this is a very important point, because in India, we typically never had any recycling or retreatment or all that. We just dump like garbage in the dumps, and these such large mountains of garbage near Delhi and Mumbai and other areas. So this is a very, very, very serious problem, because lithium ion battery, unlike other lead acid, etc., it has several hazards, fire hazard, health hazard, etc. So it needs a proper treatment. So then this is going to be very, very critical to the success of EV in India. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Mr. Venugopal, would you like to react?
No, Devji covered everything, but only thing that I wanted to say, lithium battery life from 100% to 30%. This is what I am saying is purely what I have read in various books and various studies and various white papers, not by the technical as a proof, but it has got about 16 years of life to become 30%. So in case of the operations, when the electric vehicle uses the lithium battery of LFP, can be of use for 6 to 7 years of the full-fledged to come down to 60%, 80% to 60%. Then, as he mentioned rightly, that when it goes to the energy storage, again it is in use for 5-6 years, because there it is not based on the SOC, it based on the how much percentage it can charge faster. So because the usage of the because deep discharge is very much important for the lithium battery, zero. So there is no zero kind of discharge happens in the energy storage. So like that, so there is no worry of the electric battery getting thrown anywhere, because end of the day, now the development that is happening in India or elsewhere for the recycling is going to be helping for the rebuilding the product again and again and again, where they will not just be scrapping it, because the minerals will be reused for the multiple purposes. That is the reason, as Devji said, it cannot be just thrown. For example, we might be using for last 10 to 15 years for mobile phones, and we have changed the phones. We exchanged the phones. The battery inside lithium, where it has gone, anybody knows? No. But whereas the lead acid battery opened in pieces, thrown the entire thing, again reused, because that gets, if you are buying a lead acid battery, your existing battery gets 10 to 15% resale value. Why? Because there is a use of that again. But whereas in lithium, it will not happen that way. It has to be done properly. And we don't know where these entire batteries, if you, as part of this, I'm just saying that if you see the Robo 2.0, you will understand that what is happening in that entire segment. So that is what. Already we have been using lithium batteries. It's not first time that electric vehicle has come, lithium battery has come.
Okay. So I think the discussion has been really very fruitful, and it has gone really intense. And I think all the participants have learned a lot. We do have two more videos from Mr. Venugopal, but as we have already covered the time, I think we would share it with the participants along with the slides. And
Perfect.
yeah,
I have only one point to say to all the audience who are actually participated here, and this is really a successful event because morning 9 o'clock, if the interested participants are on the screen, that means it is a lot of value that they give for this particular discussion. My only humble request is whatever you are carrying from here, whatever knowledge, learning, interest, whatever is coming, kindly request you to circulate at least to 50% of your friends so that it reaches to, currently I could see 19 participants are there. That means 19 into 50 people should know that what is the electric mobility, how does it help for the private sector, how people have to start talking in the employees, for particularly employees who commute in the metros, commute in the car, self cars, should start looking at the advantage of moving in the electric mobility. Why do they waste their money in spending by traveling in a Ola Subers of diesel vehicle? Rather, why don't you ask your organization to convert your electric buses, sorry, ICE buses to electric, at least one for trial. Across the India, one corporate each changes one bus, changes one two-wheeler, changes one three-wheeler, one changes one car. That makes a sense for the country that they are really accepting the electric mobility. No, they do webinars, they meet people, they speak very big, but end of the day, when it is to be implemented, they start calculating मेरे लिए क्या है, मेरा कंपनी के लिए क्या है, और आप कितने में देंगे. So this is not done. It has to be heartful change, not the pressure change. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Venugopal. Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. And we would also like to thank Mr. Gupta from Niti Aayog, though he had to leave. The discussion has been really very insightful for all of us. And with this, I would also like to mention about the upcoming activities under ALP, which we would now be doing. We'll have another ALP forum, which is scheduled for next year, April 2024. In another day, we have another webinar that is on navigating key considerations for developing green hydrogen landscape. And the slide deck for this today's session and the recording would be shared with all the participants. If in case you have more questions, please feel free to write to us at alpsecretariat@eclat.org. Thank you very much. We would now close the session. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Venu.
Bye, Devji. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Avantika and team. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.